Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
All right. Well, we're all kind of looking at each other, how we're going to start this. That was one hell of an intro, Dave.
I really wanted you to go hard on the intro like you've been doing.
No, my intros are really bad. Like, they're super bad. So I'm just going to go for it. We've got a fantastic guest for you guys today. We've actually got a couple people in our hotel room at a SHOT Show, and it almost turned into a very strange situation with people fighting over the bed. JT and another guy from Sitka. Johnathan Hart, welcome to the show. Thank you very much. Do you go by Johnathan
good to be here.
or John?
Johnathan.
Great, perfect. Well, I think we need to start with, your company. So tell us a little bit about your company. Most people know of your company, but they might not know a lot about you. So if you could tell us about the company and then tell us about you. Like, where did you grow up? What were you into recreationally? And then how did you get to where you're at?
Wow.
Great.
How about that?
Fantastic.
Cue the topless house cleaner.
Yeah, it might be the maid service, you know. Did I get a bad time for a massage therapist to come by?
Yeah.
Really sorry
No,
about
actually,
that.
I think the timing is perfect. Great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. So where to start? I grew up Bay Area, San Francisco, north of. A very anti-hunting community. I would say most people stereotype it as that. What's interesting in terms of the area is actually most people aren't. And you grow older and you reflect on who says what and what they want people to think of you and what they do. There's actually a lot of hunters. But it's just something in our super democratic state that keeps people from talking about it. But yeah, we grew up in a community that was heavy in the world. I'd say more so in duck hunters than anything. But one of the most unlikely places in the world that you would think that the next, this is a leap, greatest hunting brands ever would be born from. And that's
an accurate statement. Sitka is Sitka, like, first through 10th place, like, they have first through 9th. Like, they have no equal.
Wow.
It's like BRC, like, first place by a mile.
Yeah. So why? I think similar to a lot of the businesses that come out of the Bay Area, generally recognized as being a tech area, but I think more importantly, it's an area that is that promotes and is comfortable with just pushing and taking risks. If you believe in something, you do it, and that's, looking back at the last 13 years, I think that's what it was. It was the belief in something with the group of people that just got behind it and pushed. And ultimately, that's what Sitka became. And so going back to your original question, and I'll really, stop me from going down the rabbit holes because I'm bad at it. But personally, family-wise, we were an outdoor family. And we spent most of our time recreating in the outdoors. Big appreciation for what that meant. And I think ultimately all of that tied together was this kind of appreciation for what the outdoors does for your inner person and your self-connect with something. We were not a church-going family, but the outdoors was our church, which kind of sounds cheesy, but it was.
I like that, man.
We were, I would say, we were raised as a family that got after it. I don't know how else to, regardless of what the sport was
Right.
or what the endeavor was, but it was, chase your dreams.
Does your guys' gear kind of encompass all of the outdoors, hunting? I mean, I have a general understanding of it, but like, what is it all about?
Yeah, so from a gear perspective, it's funny because we are in a place where we're totally focused on the hunting space. At the most, I would say at the most devoted level of the spectrum, which, I mean, you think of like the craziest hunters in the world, and crazy is a loose term, but I would say the sheep hunters that end up in the Northwest Territories with a backpack.
Yeah, so we had Donnie on the show yesterday, and basically we were talking about how the barrier to entry to sheep hunting is two things: one, can you afford it, and two, can you physically do it?
Right.
So I would classify. There's a phrase you'll hear. Western hunter, which is spot and stalk, more arduous terrain, up and down, as opposed to Texas or the South. Just being flat.
Right.
So their gear is. It's the detail and technical aspects of it, components of it is phenomenal. It's not smoke and mirrors. And when you wear it, and I have a ton of it, and it's the only thing I'll put on my body when I duck hunt, and I duck hunt a lot. You ever been in a situation like, you just want to put your hand somewhere and there's a pocket there, or everything is in the exact right spot. The zippers, you can't destroy them, you can't mess with them. Like everything, like he said, is done to the nth degree for the most extreme levels of the sport.
Yeah. So it makes it easy when you focus on just the pinnacle user. Everybody else appreciates what the experience is below that. And Donnie, one of my favorite people in the world, is an incredible feedback machine.
I've heard that from several companies.
Was he just come back from the wilderness and he's like, there needs to be a pocket right here because when I'm doing this and...
Dude, 1 centimeter higher on the left.
Really?
Yeah. Oh,
wow.
yeah. Donnie's, he's the best.
Wow.
He's absolutely the best. Actually, I've got a little plug for him. My wife is going to be showing his YouTube video, Who We Are, in my son's 8th grade class this week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
In California?
Yeah. In California.
Is that allowed?
Why we hunt. Well, you see change. And this is like one of those like interesting things that you see. God, are we going to go there? I thought we were going to go talk about product. So change is happening. And his class is having a conversation around the harvest. All encompassing. Not just fruits, not just vegetables, but also about where your protein and your meat comes from.
Yeah, the hunter-gatherer spectrum, yeah.
Exactly. And, of course, I got the email for, I need somebody to come help with the class. And I was like, holy smokes, like, yes. Put me in, coach. Oh, wait, shoot, I'm traveling all week. And I wrote back and just said, you know what, I can't be there. I will donate elk and deer for your class discussion. And my wife will come in and talk, which she looked at me and she said, what the fuck? Seriously? Did you just put me in without asking? I said, yeah, pretty much I did. It's important, though. And that's okay now. Like, that's becoming okay.
That's phenomenal.
That's pretty cool.
In our schools.
Wow.
But you said before I took us off subject, you said if you focus on the pinnacle user. I really like that line.
Product perspective, yeah, you always focus on the pinnacle user, and everything else just flows from there. It makes it harder, a lot of work in the beginning, but...
Now, by pinnacle, you just mean kind of the user that's going to use it to the utmost potential and really push the gear to the limits of its
max it out, yeah. And you can look at it a couple different ways. One is days in the field. One is... the most I would say the most critical in terms of what is it, does it work, why did we make this, is it intentional, and that person is very exacting in what their expectations are, which is great. It makes it easy. It actually becomes pretty black and white in terms of what you make.
So when you guys founded this, were you looking to grow it to this scale and this level, or was it kind of a rocky road where you're like, hey, I enjoy the outdoor space and the hunting space, I just kind of want to make gear that I enjoy? What was the process?
We believed that we could become the next North Face. That was it. So not to dream big, but yeah, it was pretty big. And I think it wasn't just the product, but a lot of it was around the brand and what the brand meant. And we looked at what, we'll just pick North America, and we always looked at everything globally, but just picked North America. And, for us, the biggest litmus is Cabela's or Bass Pro. And you walk into a Cabela's or Bass Pro and you go, okay, what's the floor set? Why do they have X, Y, and Z? Well, yeah, but these brands don't really mean that much to these consumers. But we are that brand, and we believe that we can touch all these all these consumers in a meaningful way. Why don't we have the whole floor set? We can build a product.
Right.
We can solve the problems that consumers are looking for, and we can build a brand that people get behind. And yeah, so that was sort of the big picture. What does it mean long term? And I think we're well on the path to be in there. I mean, not $2 billion in revenue, but
So
it's
many
not
parallels between these two brands.
How-
I absolutely love this.
What's the genesis story of it, in the sense of, were you in business before? Did you have another apparel companies or clothing companies? What would you do before, and then how did you get into this?
When I was 15, no, was it 14 or 15? I can't remember which one. So every summer would start with from Dad. So what are you going to do this summer? Always the question, really asking, like, for work, what were you going to do this summer? And so when I was 15, couldn't drive yet, was doing landscaping for the local landscaping company. Next year, 16, what are you going to do this summer? Well, I'm going to go back and do the same thing. It was great money, felt good, outdoors.
Got a nice tan. I did that too in the summer.
Shirts off. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Before skin cancer was invented.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's totally overrated. Right. And he just said, well, why would you go do that job for somebody else that you can do yourself? He goes, just stop and think about the network of people that we know. Couldn't you do half the work and make twice the money now that you have a car? It's like, okay. Yeah, you're right. And so that's what that summer was. Half the work, twice the money. And ever since then, our dad was very entrepreneurial in spirit, and he kind of drove that into us. And my path as from a professional perspective, was always jumping around different businesses, trying to understand, how do you build businesses? And it was never about what job can I take just to cruise along with said brand. It was always about, how do I go into a company, understand a certain part of the company, looking at the big picture, and thinking about what happens that one day when the idea pops in your head and you can go, you know what, this is the idea to build a company around, and you understand every part of the business. And so it's kind of a roundabout way, but it was very intentional over a 10-year process of understanding how to build businesses, which took me from the dot-com boom to the wine industry to being a treasure hunter in the South Pacific. It was all about understanding, how do you build businesses? And when the aha moment came, that was it.
Right.
Certainly driven by inspiration. I mean, from a very young age, I've always been a total gearhead. Love to make the outdoor experience a better experience. And it was kind of just an alignment.
You say 13 years you've been in business for?
Yeah.
Oh. It's funny. One of my buddies, we were rafting, and it was like super cold, dark, and we're out in the middle of the Frank Church. I don't know if you know where that's at.
Oh yeah.
And we were heaving this fucking big boat down the water, and it was just a nasty day. And he's just comfortable could be. I was wearing Gore-Tex bibs and I was freezing my ass off. He had a dry suit on, and I was like, man, this fucking weather. And he goes, there is no such thing as bad weather. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, no, there's just bad gear and bad choices. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. The next year, my dry suit is like the most fantastic piece of equipment I've ever owned in my life. Like that thing is
I'm going to guess
amazing.
99% chance it's a Kokatat.
You know it is. It's a Gore-Tex
Yes.
Kokatat with a hood,
Full piece.
and it
Bomber.
is.
What is that? What is a
bomb.
Kokatat?
Matt and I'll Google that when the show's over. We have no idea what you're talking
What is
about.
that?
So Kokatat is the strongest brand in the world of water sports. I argue that they are the best. They're the best builders of not only just waterproof but water or airtight pieces of outdoor protection in the world. Small business up in Arcata, Northern California, still keeping it American made, the whole deal. Employ, it sometimes feels like half the city in a little
That's awesome.
foggy little community right on the coast. And they test their gear every day out in the
That's
water.
up towards Monterey, right?
No, yeah, about 7 hours north of Monterey.
Oh, really? That
like
far north?
Yeah.
almost
Oregon
to,
border.
almost to the Oregon border.
Okay.
Like right
It's
where
like Weed, California, up there.
pretty close. Yeah. So if you go
Yeah.
from Weed and head straight west,
Okay.
until you hit the water,
Got it.
they're an amazing company, and they've been doing this like the same thing. They pivoted 30 years ago and
What
said,
were
you
they
know,
doing 30 years ago?
they were building a whole bunch of different outdoor random, pieces.
Right.
And they said, you know what, we're going to become the best in the world at water sports, keeping people comfortable.
Well,
But
they
they're the
did
best.
it because I'll tell you, every time I step out on the river, it could be sunny, and I'm looking at it going, man, I just want to get my dry suit so I can get in the water. And,
Yeah.
That's like,
But you don't get wet.
sometimes I get
We
wet.
did. Evan 2 years ago took me my first river rafting trip. He owns Idaho River Adventures, and they do the Middle Fork of the Salmon. And at the time, I mean, I've hunted a lot. I've hunted all over the world, but fishing's never been my thing. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'd love to come. And
Wife
so,
was the ex-river guide.
so my
Nice.
buddies, I was like, yeah, man, I'm going on this river trip. They're like, what are you doing? I was like, yeah, my Evan from BRC invited me to float the Middle Fork of the Salmon, and they're like,
Dude.
Are you serious?
Middle Fork?
yeah, they were like, you that's like one or number 2 river trips in the U.S. And I was like, well,
Right
lucky
after
me.
Selway or Grand?
I would say
But-
it's Grand. Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
Grand,
like the big
Middle
three.
Fork, Selway.
Yeah, big 3 are Grand, Middle Fork, Selway. And,
But that was interesting, watching him navigate the boats and that kayak and stuff he put in, and like.
yeah, I'm a
Look at
water.
that,
I
bro.
mean, I was a hardcore water sports guy. So I mean, I in the whitewater. I grew up in Idaho.
Yeah.
Grew up in the whitewater. Whether it was like jet boat, kayak, drift boat, raft, it doesn't matter. Just get in the river. And I think my first boat was like this big. It doesn't matter. I don't know why I'm launching down this rabbit hole. This nasty big Perception. And then I had this other like big, and now these are considered creek boats because they're so fucking big. But now, with play boats and all these other things that are like the technology's evolved. But I spent a huge percentage of my time outside of my profession just in the water. So
Yeah,
that was-
it's a big. It's funny you bring up the water. So my wife was a ex-river guide. She
Where at?
in Colorado
Where-
on the Pooter,
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
and she taught me how to kayak,
Mm.
and quickly ramped up to just being an addict of steep creek and class 5,
Right.
big falls, like dropping everything. And when our son was born, who's 13 now, I hung up the boats
Yeah.
because I was scared. I mean, I knew every time. And one of my favorite quotes, and hopefully you guys will at some point talk to my friend George, SEAL guy, and we had kids at the same time. And I always asked him, I just said, so how do you do it? You have a kid. And he said, so that first paddle stroke right when you're about to drop into a class 5? I said, oh yeah, super familiar with that feeling? And he said, yeah, blinders go up on the sides. He goes, every stroke you make all the way down is the right stroke, because if you make the wrong stroke, you're dead.
Right.
100% conviction, everything. He goes, that's my life. And I was like, wow. And I never forgot that conversation. And it was, that was 12 years ago. But that's what paddling was. And it was so intense. It was so amazing. And this summer, my son had pushed and finally jumped into a boat. We went to Kokatat.
Nice.
In person, went through the factory, the whole deal, and walked out of there fully rigged up and jumped in a boat, and off he's going. And I was like, I'm so excited I can get back in a boat now.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't, because I was so afraid of what, could happen, because that's just how I ran, right on the edge. And you don't want to make that mistake when you got kids and stuff. But now it's
You got a rafting buddy.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's cool.
It's funny because I made the transition over to rafts. Not,
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
We got the whole thing. Or rig, everything.
Yeah.
We're same toys.
And I got out of the boats and went to the rafts because I wanted more I wanted the ability to take my family out on the river and have them have this experience that, family experience, and be able to spend like 3-4 days. And ultimately when my kids are big enough, do a long grand trip, like 20 some days.
Yeah.
But I transitioned to rafts before I even had kids. I bought the company before I had kids in expectation of going, I know I'm going to have kids someday, and I want to have the ability to take them down the river anytime I want. So, people always ask me, well, what did you buy, or how did you prepare for your family or whatever? I'm like, man, I actually bought a company that allows me access to the most remote wilderness in the fucking lower 48, and I'll have it for the rest of my life, and my kids will have it, and they didn't know it, and I didn't know my kids at that time, but that was my greatest gift that I could have given them. I took literally everything that I had in the bank at that time and invested in the company, because permits like that don't come up. They only issue 18. There's only 18 on the river. They don't issue anymore. And it's like, okay, well, I don't and it's not like I was government contractor at the time, so it was a significant investment in my future, hoping that those babies could produce, I guess. Like, holy shit, they better work, man. I better get some swimmers in there, and I better get somebody that can do
one of the
it.
greatest gifts this world will ever know, Bug. She's going to develop the cures to all diseases.
The gear,
it's the most fascinating child I've ever been in the presence of.
The gear aspect of things, like I'm a hardcore gearhead too. Like, I mean, so I can definitively respect it. The funny thing is, like,
and a friendship
gear
is
stuff,
born.
Yeah. There's just so many parallels. I love listening to this.
I've not been hunting for like significantly for years. So like the Your brand came along when I wasn't really hunting, and then I had other brands, but they were doing the same kind of thing in the military space, right? So like Cry and a few of those other companies that are out there doing what you call the pinnacle user.
Super familiar with all of them.
Right.
Yep.
And I've seen your stuff a lot. I know exactly, your competitors and you, but it's funny. I just don't hunt enough. But now that I'm getting into it,
they got bows for Christmas. They both got Hoyt RX ones. Evan had a bow before he got his, so I had Evan Williams from Hoyt go meet him at the shop, let him pick out colors, everything, measure them, because I wanted the bows to fit them, because they can both shoot lights out with a gun. So that will transition.
Shocking.
They will, yeah, exactly. Pistol, long gun, whatever you want. They can both shoot lights out, offhand, whatever. And I wanted it to fit them perfectly, because I want, for me personally, I want their experience with the bow to be as good as possible.
It has to be, and because it can be.
Yeah,
and that's the cool part. I can't. When you guys are ready to go recurve, we'll have that conversation.
I shoot a traditional right now. Well, not a recurve, but I shoot a Hoyt Buffalo.
Okay.
With his daughter in a papoose on his back, standing in his kitchen So the heat from the kitchen blows on her back, and he shoots his target out of his backyard.
I am going to have to support the company because I grew up bird hunting. I like
He's
to
a
go
big bird hunter.
harvest
You're not a
an
big
animal
bird
at
hunter.
least
Yes.
once a year. So, and now getting into a little probably bow hunting, I'm going to have to go swing by your guys' shop and,
No, it's funny, like
some gear.
listening to him talk about the pinnacle user and like, so for example, like duck hunting and whatnot, like the market has been demanding waders from Sitka for how long?
Number one requested product from inception.
Wow. Okay.
And
Waders.
they're finally here.
Really?
And
Yeah,
it's
it took a
interesting to
long
me
time.
because I think they were waiting to perfect it and get it right.
Right.
And I look at the way that Evan does business, and another example is the way Matt does videos. So Matt won't put anything out unless it's right.
Yeah.
He
meets the
won't. Matt
vision.
could put stuff out every day, and it would do tons and tons of stuff. But he basically does his videos, and the way he presents the brand and whatnot is very similar to the way Sitka puts out products. You're not putting out a product for the simple fact of a race for SKUs. Like so when we were growing up, there was 4 Gatorade flavors. Now there's like 1,000. Evan could do that. Matt could do that. JT could do that. They could load the market with stuff, but they don't put out a product unless it's 100% right. And like I think that is one of the coolest fucking things in the world.
I really want to hear like when you had that aha moment. Like, do you remember where you were and what you were doing?
Oh my
and,
gosh,
like-
it is
Cold.
clear as day.
Okay.
One of those perfect storms. Had just woke up in the dark, climbed about 3,000 feet to get above timberline. Went through every. That's right. This is Idaho, Sheep Mountain. We went through every weather condition you could imagine on this one climb.
Where were you at in Idaho?
We were in Sheep Mountain, Idaho, northeast of Haley.
Okay. Yeah.
And it started off cold and crisp, then the wind, then the rain, then the snow, then the bulls bugling nonstop, and sitting at about 11,000 feet above timberline behind a little white burled pine, trying to just get out of the weather, and looking at our soaking wet cotton crap.
Right.
Going, I mean, literally, it was one of those. I wish I was wearing my climbing gear. Why in the world do we wear this stuff?
Right.
Because I've got a whole closet full of stuff that I'd be really, really comfortable in right now. Yet that gap between the hunting industry and the climbing industry is about 10 years.
Right.
But question mark, like why?
So let me jump in
and
real
that
quick.
was the
So
beginning.
I think, just so those listening, what Jonathan's talking about is the hunting industry on the apparel side at this point focused on the pattern and how appealing it was to the human consumer. They didn't look at the rods and cones in animals' eyes. They didn't put any science and studying into the way that animals see, hear, smell, taste, process things. Because animals, we see something, and sometimes we're like, man, what is that? The difference between humans and animals is that animals process things instantaneously. They hear something, they know what it is, if it's foreign. And they smell, they taste, it's instantaneous processing.
Yeah.
And then that is basically, that's what he's getting at with the hunting side. There was no technical component or thought behind the apparel. It was just, let's make a camo pattern that people down in Georgia or Alabama will think looks cool.
Right.
And they'll buy it and wear it.
Yeah, that's very fair, and it's easy and quick to just gloss over stuff like that. So you're absolutely right. Animals are fight or flight. I mean, it's just instinctual. That's where they are.
And they see things differently than humans.
yeah.
The way they see colors and hues and depth.
So from inception, it started with the simple understanding of what's a layering system, completely foreign to the hunting industry. In the climbing industry or the outdoor recreational industry, it's like that's what you do. It's pretty obvious. You look, flip through any publication right now in the hunting space, that's standard vocabulary. It wasn't back then, which is kind of one of those kind of fun reflections when you look at vocabulary and the change of language and like how people even talk about preparing for hunts. For us, it's the only way that you go in the outdoors. Like a system was everything, and it didn't exist before. And that was kind of the, well, why doesn't it?
Right.
And that was the sort of the beginning of the whole, the quest. It started off to seek to understand, and then it became, well, nobody's doing it. We should do this, because if you're not comfortable, you're sacrificing the opportunity not just to be quote unquote successful, but just to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Because at the root of all of it, being in the outdoors is this path to connecting with yourself. And it's very philosophical in a sense, but it's the reality of why we spend so much time in the outdoors. It's about like who we are at our core, and being able to empower people to do that is really the quest. If you harvest, yeah, that's a win. That's a bonus. It puts food on the table for your family, and there's a lot of that part is very important, depending on who you are as an individual and as a family. But at the root of all of it, it is about who you are as a person and being able to connect back to that. And the outdoors, it does that. And
so you wanted to stay dry and layered.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah. So you can break it apart and pull it apart in 10 different ways, but at the end of the day, it's about being comfortable. Because if you're comfortable, you make better decisions. It's about mental acuity. It's about if you really want to get hardcore about it, we talk about core temperature. There's, we're driven a lot by research that's been done in the military, which is around what happens, like how do you react, like why do you make the decisions that you make, and the physiological outputs of your core become amazingly important on what happens in the decisions you make. So you can drill it all the way back to what we refer to as just mental acuity, and mental acuity drives a whole bunch of decision-making processes. So like as a hunter, when you wake up, that's the beginning of the decision-making tree. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, all the way down to the very end. And it doesn't matter if you ultimately are successful in a harvest, but it certainly dictates what your experience is for the day.
Yeah, I'm cold as shit. There's a bull 400 yards this way. The smart thing to do would be go around the mountain and take a 2-mile trip to get to him on the other side.
Right.
Or I'm cold as fuck. I'm miserable. I'm tired. My knees hurt. My legs hurt. Fuck this. I'm just going to hope that I'm just going to beeline to him and maybe he'll still be there.
If you're
it never works out that way.
If you're uncomfortable, you're distracted. Mm-hmm. And if you're comfortable, you're not distracted. And
would you guys say that's accurate in Ranger School and Q course and all that stuff? And
I mean, maybe a little bit, right?
Were you ever comfortable in Ranger School?
Well, no, but I mean,
question.
ultimately, you're kind of just checking the box and putting one foot in front of the other. So I think that the payoff not necessarily is finding the animal and being able to harvest it. It's just keeping going. So
yeah,
a little bit of a parallel, but not.
The key to getting through Ranger School is they don't want you comfortable.
And they want to force you into being as uncomfortable as
Right.
possible. Like they're trying to make you as distracted as possible with everything that they can put on your plate. So they want you to be cold. They want you to be wet. They want you to be hungry.
Well, that's the whole
they
purpose.
want you to
See
do
how
all
you
that.
just talked about if you're going to take the 2-mile trip to the elk or
Yeah.
beeline it for it. It's the same decisions you have to make under stress in the military. Like, how am I going to set up this linear ambush when I have to do an 8K infill and I'm super tired, super uncomfortable? What decisions are you going to make as a leader? It's the same exact thing. And then,
taking
Exactly-
shortcuts in the
exactly
rear
the
will take
same.
them out.
Yeah.
the
And
field,
if you
yeah.
can do it like that with all the other fucking distractions and block out the weather, the fatigue, the hunger, everything, if you can do it there, you apply good gear to the same situation with food, with sleep and good gear, chances are you're going to do it well.
Right.
Right. So that's the whole premise
So like
of
if
that.
we took Johnathan to like the guys at Rangers, we're like, hey man, we got some clothes. We want to get these candidates really comfortable. What do you guys think? They'd say, get the fuck out of here.
They would say, that sounds great. I mean, it's a new army these days.
It's-
They'd probably like, can you fill the pockets with food?
I think I know the answer. The RIs would go, fuck yeah, send it all down. We'll take it all.
Yeah,
And
the RIs
would be like,
would be super comfortable while the students are.
I've got
hating
a
on it.
like super quick like side story in this where it's like I was in like the equivalent of Ranger School in the Special Forces, the Q course, and I had this TAC, which is the guy running the entire evolution, and it's like raining and sleet, and it's like the worst type of cold because it's not snow, it's like soaks you to the bone and then it freezes and you're just like absolutely the most miserable physically. My hands didn't work. Like you're borderline hypothermic for like several days where I was just begging for hypothermia. Like I just wanted hypothermia because that's like the honorable way out. Like they're going to have to fucking medevac me. This is great.
$1 million injury.
This is great.
Stab
You know,
myself
like
in the leg.
I'm going to get out of here. Right. And, in this tack, man, like everybody's like jackhammering. Like we lost 50% of the people quit, and just the most miserable situation. The guy is just like nothing, stone faced, like doesn't make a move. You never see him like jackhammer, just absolutely. And he's in the same weather you are, wearing what looks to be the same amount of clothing, which is just cotton fatigues, basically, right? Just that's it. They wouldn't even let us put like Gore-Tex or anything on. And I ran into the guy in Baghdad, Iraq, like 6 or 7 years later. And I was talking to him. His name was Russell. His last name was Byron Russell. His name. I was like, man, you are like a machine. You're like a robot. Like, how did you do what you did? Because I was like the coldest I've ever been in my life. Like everybody was fucking miserable. He's like, oh shit, I was wearing a 3 mil wetsuit underneath. You guys were miserable. I remember that.
That's funny. He was a candidate or instructor.
No, he was an instructor.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he has to have like that godlike presence.
Right.
Right.
And you're like, this guy's the hardest dude I've ever seen in my life.
I had on a 3 mil.
And he's like, oh,
wetsuit,
God,
yeah.
yeah, of course. Like, yeah, I was wearing a 3 mil wetsuit, dude. Like, oh, my God, I remember that. That was horrible.
That's unbelievable.
I would. He's like, I'm a huge pussy.
Our big game product line manager, John Barklow, he specifically, he taught Special Forces survival up in Kodiak.
Cold weather training for SEAL teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And he had this rewarming drill. And it was you load up, put your whole kit on, everything, walk out onto a frozen lake until you break through.
Fuck that.
And then you're
I'll say that for everybody in the room. Fuck
and then,
that.
and then walk out. And it's an amazing exercise because you learn the power of your inner core and how you can actually drive from the inside out. And you just go. Like you just turn it off, turn the pain off, and realize that it's a survival, you're in a survival situation, but that you will survive.
Right.
It's uncomfortable, but that's okay.
That might be the shittiest thing I think I've ever heard of someone doing to another person.
Oh yeah. Well, coming up with that,
Keep
I'm like,
walking
dude, you're
until you fall through.
How long did it take you from idea to your first sell?
24 months.
Wow.
What was the first product? Like, you had to add on to his question.
6 pieces. So we had 6 pieces, basic. So we've always been system thinkers, and we started off with 6 pieces: pants, shirt, jacket, hat, whatever, gloves or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but from day one, it was all about the system. We didn't start with just a hat or just a shirt or just a jacket. It was, this is the kit. And I remember we took our first order in January. I think it was at SHOT Show.
Oh, really? Wow.
And then it was, holy smokes, we need to figure out how to make this.
Who was your first order? Did you say?
Schnee's, Bozeman, Montana.
Cool.
John Edwards.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He was the man. He believed in us. He completely he appreciated the concept right from inception and just said, I get it. I completely get it. I'm in. I'll drop everything else that I have, and I'll double down on you guys. And so,
Wow.
so we scrambled, just like every business startup does, and we delivered. The mantra that was drilled into our heads. Our business mentor was a guy named Jack Gilbert, who founded Mountain Hardware, and we.
With Mountain Hardware, right?
Who?
With Mountain Hardware.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, small brand in the
Yeah,
outdoor.
super
small
tiny.
brand.
Yeah.
Super tiny.
yeah. So Jack's point from day one was deliver. Deliver, deliver, deliver. If you say it's going to be there on Monday, make sure it shows up on Monday.
Right.
And that was our mantra, was deliver. And so we delivered. I think we delivered maybe a day late, but we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea. We had no background. We'd never been to China in
Right.
person before. We had absolutely no idea what we were doing, but we were quick studies. And
So did you get on a plane and fly to China? Is that what you did?
sometimes, like, oh, I got to be in China tomorrow. You just like book a ticket and you just go. Like, you just show up at a factory and go, this has got to ship next week. We just got your email and you said you're going to be 3 weeks out. We can't do that. So, it's from a respect and honor perspective. Having face-to-face conversations is really important in Asia. And so, yeah, sometimes you jump on a plane and you just show up.
For those of you listening, you don't need to read the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, because you're basically listening to that book right now.
It's
Really?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
you just go. It's basically, I think that the basics of building a business are, believe in it. Like, don't go into it just, with one toe or whatnot. But when you have your idea, be passionate about it and give 110% of who you are into that business, because it's not just a business. It's a reflection of who you are, and people will understand that. They'll respect that. And ultimately, that's like the core of what your brand is. And so for us, we got an order. Holy smokes, somebody believes in us. And so we're going to deliver on that. And we delivered on a Monday. They dropped their catalog, and on Friday they called back and said, we need to 10x our order.
Oh, shut up. Really?
And it was, holy smokes, this just happened. Like, we're going. And I think year one was 5 dealers. Year two was, I don't know, it was 100, and then it never stopped.
So when you started building this and you're grabbing dealers, did you have somebody in sales that had done that before? Were you figuring out like how to even establish your dealer network and how that the sales process?
Yeah. Well, we had backgrounds in everything.
Mm-hmm.
We were jacks of all trades. We were not great at anything, but we understood at the end of the day, it was still about brand. It was still about product, and it was still most importantly about delivering on our promise. And we just persevered through all of it. I think the only the only hard conversation from a sales perspective was one early on with Bass Pro. We didn't read the contract.
Oh.
Which has, well, there are a lot of expectations that are put on you, and yeah, we should have read the
fine print.
yeah, and that was an interesting conversation. Like, okay, yeah, we need more. I was like, well, we're sold out. WTF? Like,
Right.
yeah, we're sold out. That's an interesting one because it's legal at that point.
Yeah.
Somebody signed it.
Right.
And yeah, you get smarter as you go through it, but you're still chasing the dream. You're still like, I think at the core of it, you're so focused on the consumer that you just work through all the details that surround it. And at the end of the day, it's still about the consumer. We can all trip and screw up all around it, but making sure that the consumer's experience is the best experience, that's what you focus on.
How many employees did you have your first 2 years? 2? Seriously? Just the 2?
3. Yeah,
Three?
yeah, 3. We were 3 people in a garage.
Nice. Were you working another job too, or were you dedicating everything to this?
First year, yeah, PK delivered pizzas at night because
Fuck
we had
yeah.
no
Pizza
we-
delivery.
I love that.
That's so
great.
awesome, man.
for a year
legit.
because we had no money.
That's
And we had no money. We
Fucking
doubled
awesome.
down on our houses,
Right.
extended everything. I mean, there was not a extra penny anywhere, and
Was
yeah,
it worth it?
It was totally worth it.
yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's so amazing. People go, "Oh, like when were you happiest?" And it's crazy. Like I think we were all happiest grinding 18 hours a day, which is an unsustainable model. Like you look back and you go like, yeah, that's stupid. And it was. Like I think I could run about 6 to 8 weeks going 18 hours a day, and then I'd be deathly sick for about 4 to 5 days. Like full on, just fetal position in bed, my wife going, "You're an idiot." And then pulling out of it going, "Okay, right back at it." And you just don't stop. And I think those are the funnest days, the most unhealthy,
The most unhealthy, yeah.
but you feel alive, which is, I think, the whole point.
Yeah, it's like I think I sent Evan a text on Christmas Day, and I was like, man, I hate holidays. It's like I just, like people don't work. It seems like nothing's really going on, But, it's interesting, like decision makers answer emails and work on holidays and the weekends. That's why they're decision makers.
I keep waiting for the 26-hour day.
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be so good.
Dude, just a couple extra hours a day would be awesome.
Let me ask you this: what are some, like, looking back now? We look back on things that happened to us in the past, and looking back, it's like, oh, that's no big deal. But during that moment, during that time, like there were things that were very, very difficult. Like I ask, Evan and Matt this all the time. It's like what was the hardest part about Ranger School? And like, not now looking back, but like in the moment at that time, what was tough? And ask Evan the same stuff. And like looking back, when you were in that moment, in that day, what were the hardest things, most difficult, trying, challenging things that you had to do?
Pretty easy. Not being with my kids.
Yeah.
That was the hardest part.
With regards to business, not family, like the accounting or
Yeah, the
or
business.
operations or things like that, or manufacturing, like what part, was the most challenging?
Being forced to be a manager and having the all of a sudden realizing that you have people that depend on your decisions, because you start off, you go into it where it's all about you, and then all of a sudden it's not about you.
Yeah, you're responsible for others.
It is, so for us, we refer to like team as brand, and our brand is the team. And like that realization that it's not you anymore
Right.
is, it's a mind shift. And you see like these crazy businesses, the most famous in the world is Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Like hero, idol, unbelievably ego, self-centered person that you look at that and you hopefully learn from that. And I think, if I were to tell somebody who's going into starting a business, is think about the business that you want to create and the culture that you want to create, and think about the team that is going to be born out of it, and it's not about you. And it can't be about you.
Let me ask you guys a question. So, in your previous jobs, he's talking about being a manager and being responsible for people. So, like, in your previous jobs, like, you were responsible for people, and, like, mistakes could cost lives. Like, how has that transitioned, with being, managing people and responsible for people and stuff, where the consequences is lost money and, like there's no one's going to get, or lose their life over a bad decision with regards to coffee. But like, did you learn from those situations being managers overseas of people and responsible for other guys?
Yeah, I mean, I managed a lot of people. I mean, prior to this, so that was one thing that I was fairly comfortable with. The problem is that was in the military context, and so managing people in the military and or in a paramilitary organization, you have a way that you can communicate with people, which is like, no shit, like, let's get this done. I'm going to put my foot in your ass. You go to the civilian side, and that sometimes is
Feelings.
It's sometimes like, now I have HR, and I can't tell people like, get your fucking head out of your ass.
You have
Why are
HR?
you an idiot? I can.
Is that
but,
surprising? Of course,
like,
we have HR.
I've got to walk like a tighter line now, because like I can't come in and good game everybody, or else the females in my office are going to be a little bit weirded out by that, and more than likely they're going to complain. But I'm making a joke to a certain degree, but there is very, very much in the military. When you look at your mission, you look at your team, and my mission was never BlackRifle Coffee. I wrote a life mission statement, which was to economically emancipate myself from the United States government and lead a happy and fulfilling life. Those definitions underneath that, which was, what are the vehicles that I need to what are the machines that I need to build in order to fulfill the mission objective, right? And BlackRifle Coffee has a mission statement, but it's ultimately fulfilling an individual mission. So the company is not me. The company is the brand and the people, and the success of the company it doesn't necessarily directly dictate whether or not I'm defining my life as a success. So they're very differentiating, nuanced things within that. But that's a long answer. I hope.
Yeah, but so basically, management is management, whether it's overseas, and you have to evolve.
No,
and
it's different.
But
It's just different. Like,
I guess my point is you have to adapt.
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to
I mean,
There's different approaches to even the individual. I mean, let alone a whole company.
Yeah.
Again, at this time, like we have 110 employees, 12 employees, I guess, as of this morning, and I ignite portions of my communication back, like this morning, for instance, like if I yelled at my CFO for 15 minutes and I felt like it was 4 years ago or whatever, like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, those were the statements that I'm making, and I'm like, oh, well, I still got that in me. I'm still a dick. Yeah. No, I'm joking. I'm like, I have to convey a point in the seriousness of this through a method of communication that I'm absolutely familiar with, because I've been doing it for, my entire adult life. And sometimes that's the best way, but it can't be the only way.
Right. So I think Dave said we're kind of running on time. Or did you say that or did not say that?
I
thought you were waving at me. I'm sorry.
I want to, like, how many people do you have working for Sitka now?
Full-time equivalents, FTEs.
Yeah.
We're 27, I think. 25 or 27.
And where are you guys based out of?
Bozeman, Montana.
Yeah, we had Brad
Speaking to Evan's
Christian
heart
on
right there.
yesterday too.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
DC.
Talking about place of peace. One thing, observing is if you look at, Sitka and how many other companies have tried to copy what you guys
Yeah.
did. And the same with BRC. Like, how many companies, like, have tried to, in essence, kind of copy. And I think like imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And I think when you create something like Sitka or BlackRifle and it causes other companies to come into existence, I think that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. So yes, there's a
Six maybe.
Every trade show there
Yeah.
seems to be another.
Right.
There's a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Sure doesn't feel that way, though, does it?
It's interesting because for us, the point of view is competition is great. It makes us stronger.
Right.
And we believe that at the end of the day, competition gives the consumer the best opportunity for an experience in the out of doors. Kenton and I, founder of First Light, did a podcast on Saturday at Wild Sheep Show, and people were shocked. Like, are you kidding? You guys are direct competitors. And I said, well, I don't see it that way. Like, actually, neither one of us do. Like, you could argue we're competitors, but we're actually not. We're completely aligned on everything we do. And so I think that actually makes us, brothers in arms. And that's I think a very different way of looking at business, which people struggle with, but it makes life easier. You don't worry about it.
I would agree with that. I think I love to compete. Like I love competition.
Come on, no way.
the thing where I say is like, bring on the competitors and let's have a great time, because like just like on the range or anything else, let's put our toes on the line. Let's get it out, man. Let's fucking go. However, when your competition crosses the line into theft, that's where you're like, okay, now you're a criminal. You're not competing against me. You're just trying to steal from me, right? So that's where I'd say there's a line where you're like, okay, now you're just stealing intellectual property. That's where I would say, like imitation, when you're imitating and not competing.
Yeah,
that's
Evan lost an axe throwing contest
in
Colorado this summer. And I would now probably say that Evan might be one of the greatest axe throwers this country's ever produced.
Where's your axe?
It's in
I don't
Utah.
think he'd ever thrown, like, there was the guys from like Nine Line.
Line.
Hey, let's do an axe throwing competition, and like I don't think Evan had ever thrown one.
No, I'd thrown a lot of them. I just fucked up my
2 weeks
pacing.
later, he was.
We have a very similar methodology, though, because we have another apparel brand that's very in line with what another company called Nine Line. But the same thing. I mean, we hang out with those guys. I mean, the space of the apparel companies is almost the exact same, but we see it the same way as you, where it is healthy competition, but it's good to have those relationships, because sometimes, if we put out a shirt, they put out a shirt, it's, bridging that intellectual property gap. We'll be like, hey man, like we put this out 2 years ago, like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. And we pull it, and then maintaining that good relationship. And honestly, if you're competitive together, you actually create a more rewarding space, because even the customer, right? They'll purchase some things from them, they'll purchase some things from us, instead of creating, almost a line and a definitive approach saying, if you support us, you can't support them. And I hate that. I think there's enough room for everybody, considering.
And which is refreshing, because if you're thinking big, then you don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's most people get caught up in thinking small, and you can't. You have to think big. You got to think longer term.
The little things are distractions, and they're budget busters too. It's the little tiny things.
Yeah.
You get 20 little things going on, and you can't solve any big things,
It's a little bit about tolerance, Evan's drinking my coffee. I'm okay with it,
Because you're letting it get cold.
I just can't drink the rest of it.
It's really good.
Yvonne Chenard, what do you think?
Good question.
A superhero for me.
Good.
Has been since I was a kid. And it's interesting when you talk about
Yvonne Chenard's the founder of Patagonia, for people that don't know.
when you think about brands and brand loyalty, we were raised wearing Patagonia as kids. I went to a dinner last year, Henry's Fork Foundation, and Yvonne was the keynote speaker for a group of 100 of us.
Wow.
And I was really excited to go, like, shake his hand, spend time with him, and all this stuff. And I just watched everybody kind of chase him and clobber him and trying to, like, do the meet and greet and all this stuff. I was like, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be that guy. But he's a hero for me personally. When we started Sitka, Let My People Go Surfing, that was our Bible. I mean, that's how we built.
That's his book.
Yeah, that's his. Yeah, his. I think that was his first big book.
It was his best book.
So yeah, I've read it cover to cover at least 6 times. It's the only book on my phone that I refer to when I'm flying.
That's legit. That's really cool.
And the Constitution.
Yeah.
It's like
Also
the two
legit.
things on my phone. Yeah, he's a superhero, and what I think is amazing in terms of just like sticking to your roots and your core, he's unwavering in terms of his mission, and it's the planet.
Right.
I think it's a
You
testament.
can trace that back to his climbing days.
To-
You know,
to
it's always
inception.
been that way. They started off making pitons.
Pitons.
From the beginning, he's never wavered.
Ever.
How old is he now? 70, 70?
He's late 70s.
Yeah, and it's never ever changed from the time he was like 20 years
Yeah.
old and
Yeah.
a little dirtbag climber, like in the movie Valley Uprising. You know,
Yeah.
freaking awesome, man.
He's
It's so good.
has never changed. What do they say? He's like the businessman who doesn't want to be a businessman.
Yeah.
And then like you have founder of North Face, Dave Thomas or
Yeah, he's
Tompkins?
the Wendy's guy.
Dave Tompkins. Yeah, that's another one that like stuck to his roots and all the stuff he did down in Chile and
all the way through.
Patagonia and stuff. Yeah,
Right.
man.
Who unfortunately passed away
Yeah.
with Chenard.
Yeah, they no, it's awesome. Like you're watching people like that and hearing you say that stuff. It's really cool. Like starting with a plan and seeing it through.
Yeah, what I would tell people, I think that hopefully are listening and kind of look at both of our brands is don't get hung up on the plan, but be really like look to your vision and with conviction and just focus on the vision. Plans change every day.
You can change your plan like underwear.
Yeah, same pair. You can wear 4 different ways.
That's
I don't wear underwear, so that's how I live my life.
You don't have to worry about it.
In the United States government, they just apply more plan. So they just print more plan, and then they send it overseas and print more and more and more plan, and just push more plan into more stuff.
But focus on the vision. Focus on who you want to be, and just drive to that. Don't worry about the details.
And have character, which is the ability to complete a task once the fun's worn off.
Well, yeah, keep it fun.
Yeah.
God, you got to keep it fun.
Well, Johnathan, we're running out
running.
of time, man.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast for us. And if you want to put out where people can find you individually or just the company, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, email me,
Nice.
jhart@sitkagear.com.
About 500,000 people that listen to this, but
That's
Yeah,
the
that's-
first.
That's okay.
Okay, perfect.
I love
Awesome.
I love the engagement.
Awesome.
Sitkagear.com. That's pretty easy. Yeah, I'm here and available for anybody.
And then all social media is at Sitka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
SITKA.
super easy to find it. It's a huge brand.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks a
brother.
lot.
Yay.
man.
Thank you much.